It's been a couple of weeks now since Mouse PI's initial release, and since then, a huge chunk of people already has the Platinum Trophy, and that's because Mouse PI's trophy set is actually pretty easy, just like any other new games that's been coming out lately. But for this video in particular, how do I make this challenging for me? So I sat down, and I thought to myself, can I platinum Mouse PI without shooting? Is it possible? Well, let's find out together. But before starting the challenge, the single rule I gave myself is absolutely no shooting of any kind. But this also means that dynamites and throwing barrels are okay. And of course, setting the game on Super Sleuth, which is the hardest difficulty for that added challenge. Also, I just wanted to point out that on my very first playthrough, I was just going for a normal video where I get the Platinum Trophy on the hardest difficulty. Apparently, I missed getting my first side job for Tammy before going for this particular mission, so it just never popped up, which caused me to restart the whole game entirely. And that may or may not be the reason why I'm doing this challenge right now. But during that time, I did end up popping 8 trophies before doing this challenge, like winning my first card game, collecting 5 baseball cards, collecting 5 newspapers and comic strips, and upgrading my first weapon to the max tier. I did get 3 combat-related trophies. Fortunately, I popped these trophies using dynamite. The first 2 trophies for killing 3 enemies with 1 shot and 5 enemies in 10 seconds. Now with that said, let's officially restart this game with this particular challenge in mind. At first, I was still breezing through it like I did the first time, even going through the first open area without dying. And this is where I would like to point out that doing a no shooting run on Super Sleuth is actually the second hardest thing to do in this game. The most challenging thing about this platinum is actually remembering to grab the collectibles along the way, since the game doesn't feature chapter select. As I grabbed the second piece of collectible in the first area, it immediately clicked in my head that I missed the first one before entering the open area. Oh no, I missed the first thing. Oh my god. So this caused me to go through the gauntlet all over again, only to find out that it wasn't skill when I went through it the first time, but luck. Damn. Eventually, I started formulating my own strategies as I took advantage of the AI's somewhat wonky feature simply by hiding in a corner and waiting for them to come to me as I showed them that this was in fact not Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. Snipers in this game are an absolute nightmare, however, as they teleport to another location every time I get close with just enough time to get a couple punches in. In time, I did eventually learn that the snipers do have a set location where they teleport to. It was just a matter of getting there fast enough to get some damage in. But like every physical action that Jack does in this game, it all consumes stamina. And this doesn't just include dashing, but also punching, which made sniper fights in this challenge very sweaty for this reason alone. I did get lucky and managed to stun lock one just before he teleported away. But good thing that was the end of that, and I wouldn't have to deal with another sniper randomly spawning in for no reason. I was like, what the fuck? Huh? There's 2? But after dealing with that particular segment and almost legitimately bringing me to tears, it was now time for my very first boss fight. Originally, I thought that this was going to be a challenge with every corner of the stage currently being on fire. But it turns out, while it does sometimes set me on fire, if I go far enough, the game would just spawn me back to the playable area. I mean, if it were just to stop me in place like an invisible wall while doing damage over time, this would have been a completely different story. But just casually guiding her backwards ended up working, so I kept doing that until the curtains eventually dropped on our lovely opera singer. I then got back to that area where a swarm of enemies shows up and thought to myself that this would be a really good area to get my thrown barrel trophy, since this is where I got my kill trophies in the first session. Once again running a train on everyone until I was satisfied that they were all compressed enough, and improvising the term getting 2 birds with 1 stone to killing multiple rats with 1 explosive barrel. Movie. Boomtown. Directly after this section is my second boss fight, which was made easy since the boss doesn't really move from its current position. All I had to do was to dodge the circling lasers and occasionally take cover behind conveniently placed laser-proof glass. After basically pulling off a Leon Kennedy from the OG RE4, it was back to repeated blunt force trauma to the motherboard. Another boss fight shows up shortly after, but this one seemed to have lost its head, as it would drop mines and go absolutely ballistic with its pocket weed cutter. To this day, I still wasn't sure if kicking the mines to damage her as well as myself was a proper trade-off, but everything turned out well in the end. And just like Cell in Dragon Ball, this robot also had a final perfect form, where it's basically a combination of the first two, but instead of minds, it has now transformed it into walking Samsung Galaxy phones. Surprisingly enough, I found this boss a lot faster to kill since there are buttons around the place that causes it to get electrified, which is a good added damage as opposed to just knuckles to steel. It was still a very close call, but not because of the boss itself, but because of the homing nukes that were on my tail the whole fight. The most common duality of a trophy hunter is either faced with butt-clenching scenarios filled with adrenaline and self-satisfaction after thinking of something on the spot that eventually works out, to having a brief pause to look at a guide after getting a collectible. And of course, the duality I was talking about here is a form of happiness and a form of suffering. But without suffering, there wouldn't be relief, as I have felt after getting 2 separate trophy means for collecting 10 newspapers and comic strips. The next trophy I was going for is for crushing 20 enemies with heavy objects. Mainly these things that are cartoonishly hanging over a specific area. This trophy caused me anxiety as I wasn't sure if all of them were easy for me to reach and punch down, let alone having enemies close enough to get kills from. That is until I was given my first skill of double jumping. Now I just had to look for an overpopulated area of enemies and somehow make a train without dying. The first course of action I took was going for the ranged enemies first, since they put more holes in my HP like Swiss cheese. And eventually my plan worked, and that was one less trophy I had to worry about getting without actually shooting.
Even more dudes, hell yeah. Look at this. Trophy. Spike D, 16 tons. Killed myself in the process, but worth it.
Day 2 of the challenge now, and I'm still very optimistic that this challenge will work. And you know that this is the second day because my clothes are completely different. I totally took a shower from yesterday. Yep. Got my first trophy pop for the day 2 for collecting 10 baseball cards, so I was already off to a great start. That didn't last long though, because in the train area is where the game introduces a new enemy type of the flying and very annoying variety. My main problem with these guys, besides them being hard to reach, is the fact that every other enemy in this game reacts to damage. Well, these guys don't. They completely ignore my fists, which means they will always get a shot in no matter what. And they rarely miss, and in Super Sleuth, these pesky little buggers takes down like about 7 HP per bullet. And these guys shoot 3 to 4 times in quick bursts, and the game normally spawns them in packs. So I think it's very justifiable when I say that these guys are hands down the worst encounter for me in this challenge. But now it was time for another boss fight. Not only is this guy the only humanoid animal in this game that's not a rat, but he also has pet gators, heals himself, oh, and the minigun, I guess. Straight out punches don't do much because of the whole healing factor, and the float like a butterfly, sting like a mosquito strategy doesn't really work as well because of these endless hordes of gators. So between me trying to get enough damage in while being on the move and trying not to die from the endless Florida experience, I would also need to add in the time sink since the boss would eventually heal most of the damage I dealt in the past 20 minutes. I had to think of a better strategy if I wanted to progress my game sometime this month. Until one of the homies in chat, Justin, aka one of my biggest ops, gave me some very useful information that eventually turned the tides to my favor. Everything respawns in this boss fight, and this includes the barrels. So I managed to lock this man in one place and I started throwing barrels at him like I'm Donkey Kong, while still trying to get those few extra punches in to speed up the process. Also, having him stuck in his loop, I found out that it stopped spawning the gators, as well as having his pocket nuke thing get stuck in there with him, giving me a get out of jail free card in what was almost a challenge failure. Still cowering in fear while cheesing the flyboys with loose steam pipes, I find myself in a new area with new enemies. These big guys with shotguns are probably the most annoying, that they're on a different tier list altogether. Simply put, they dish out enough damage, but nothing too crazy, so they're not really a threat when they're by themselves. The annoying part comes when I get close enough and they start running. No other enemies in the game comes close to getting me tilted when it comes to these guys. I mean, the machine gun enemies are also really annoying when it comes to this, but I feel like they don't run as much as the shotgunners do. And with other enemies nearby, I'm practically begging to get shot in the back as I chase these guys around, sometimes barely making it out alive. And the next area is another trophy for kicking this giant fish for some reason. Trophy. The area that followed, however, might just be where my run ends. In this area, I gained the ability where I use my finger guns to shoot. See, the problem here was that I couldn't swap out of it, and after finishing this area using my unswitchable finger guns, thinking that there was no other way, I remembered that I could still use my foot. So I restarted the whole thing and tried clearing this section without shooting at all. And this is where I quickly realized that not only did kicking deal as much damage as a plastic spoon in a sword fight, but bunkering down to avoid getting shot is a good way to get swarmed. So that wasn't an option either. As I was looking for strats to get me past this section, I only found a spot where I can have a short breather from the onslaught. And this is when I finally figured out that there were a total of 5 barrels in this section and a total of 2 waves of enemies that I have to go through after restarting multiple times. So with that plan in mind, this just became extremely doable. So my first course of action was to wait in this corner to avoid getting shot. As soon as the first guy shows up, I get a few kicks in as I proceed to start jumping away and grabbing my first barrel. I retreat to my safe spot while having a bunch still give chase. What you might be seeing in this footage here is me messing up my barrel throw, hitting no one, and wasting my finite amount of barrels. But you're wrong. This is for the mind games, and this is to give the enemies a false sense of hope. So I jump back down and actually successfully throw a fire barrel, this time burning a couple enemies. I tried to kick this straggler up here, but I forgot that this guy was an actual rat and just kept running away. Hence why I hate these guys with the shotguns. So I kick a small guy instead out of frustration, as I see another small guy losing all hope as he watched his best friend get Spartan kicked into the abyss, taking himself as well as one of the flyboys down with him, which was actually really huge. I proceed to go back and finish this guy off by repeated frontward motions using my foot. Last guy down, second wave incoming. So I rush in and grab another barrel, which is actually my favorite barrel because it freezes everyone in place as they die with one hit. Good thing I purposely failed to toss this to everyone down there and only killing the most dangerous one in the pack. Definitely a strategic toss. Remember, mind games. After strategizing some more, I jump down and I take another barrel with me, snuffing out a huge chunk of the Mickey Mouse bloodline. Going for barrel number 4, but someone unfortunately beat me to it. But that was fine because I had one more barrel, which I then used on these 2 ranged enemies. No more barrels left, and the only thing in my arsenal is my singular foot. So I tried to finesse the situation by going back into a corner to avoid the only guy with a gun and hopefully to kill off at least one enemy. Lady Luck was on my side that day as they all rushed in, with another rat just so happened to blow himself up, taking out everyone but 2, but leaving me extremely low in the process. And good thing that the last 2 enemies were one shot, as the last thing they would ever taste is my foot-long sub. Only one remains as he proceeded to get stuck, so I took this opportunity to land multiple kicks to end this section once and for all.
Oh shit. I actually did it without using the finger gun.
I can't hear you over the rat-a-tat-tat.
Hell yeah, bro. I think I just got lucky with like those small dudes just blowing themselves up. But I think there was enough barrels in here to make it possible without shooting.
And just like that, the challenge was still alive, as I have yet to shoot a single gun. Until another boss showed up and once again tempting me to use the bazooka, this time to damage it. Good thing that dynamite still has much damage as well, as that was the only method I went for. This boss didn't really do anything besides call for reinforcements, so I bunker down in this building and pick off as many as I can and start throwing dynamites once the coast was clear. Not sure if Lady Luck was in play once again as I ran out of dynamites. There were thankfully 2 barrels left that I used to beat the boss, and it was just enough damage to get the job done. And right after that, I popped a story-related trophy as well as finishing 5 side quests after turning the 5th one in. For day 3 of this challenge, I may or may not have used too much cheese. Let's just say that there were 3 boss fights, and unfortunately 2 of them were lactose intolerant. The first boss in the swamp area is called the Mad Cultist, where he had the same teleporting ability as a sniper, except he throws dynamites instead. Not only that, but the entire floor can and will collapse if blown up, only leaving a cesspool of pain and instant death. almost impossible to do without shooting, yeah, especially without any floors to stand on, until I tried doing some parkour to potentially not worry about falling. Surprisingly enough, after it worked, I realized that none of his dynamites could reach me until he teleported to my platform. And this was the only chance I actually had to dish out some good amount of damage. I did have to learn the hard way that the devs were probably not expecting anyone to climb up here, so this also means that the railings on the side were only there for aesthetics. Oh. Alright, that happens. I just like slip and die. After learning his moves, however, I was able to punch my way out of another boss fight that could have ended our challenge for good. Couldn't even celebrate long enough until the game handed me the next boss. And for this guy, he kind of took that cheese I handed to the mad cultist as a challenge, as I was now faced with the impossible odds of beating this boss without a gun. When he showed up in a boat with sinking platforms surrounded by swamp water that damaged me over time. That and the fact that being on the boat itself was straight up not good for my health. And to top it all off, having a bunch of flyboys spawn in as backup, turning a not so beatable fight to an impossible one. But I wasn't giving up so easily as I tried to look for ways to easily take this boss on, but to no avail. The only strategy that I had here was to keep constantly jumping to keep resetting the platform so it won't sink, and camping out on this one platform so I can get 2 to 3 punches in before they sail away. Not only that, but I had to constantly dodge his shotgun bullets and try to kill off the flyboys when they show up before they end up killing me themselves. With hope slowly dwindling away as my guns were looking at me the same way that Kurama was looking at Naruto to take over his body, I made one final leap of fate as I proceeded to check and see if I could go back to land. And to my surprise, there wasn't an invisible wall or a random magic that teleported me back. I was able to relocate on the map. And with a sliver of hope still remaining, I tried to look for anything that could help me with this boss fight until I eventually found a very accessible typewriter. And that's when the only light bulb in my head went off. The first test for this plan is just doing a little bit of damage first and saving afterwards, just to see if the boss's HP would remain the same when I load back in, or if this challenge is totally cooked. After reloading my save and seeing that the boss's HP did in fact remain damaged, I started experiencing something very strange.
Yes, sir. His HP's still down and he's gone! What the f?
For some reason, doing this while the boss fight was happening ended up breaking the boss entirely, and now they weren't even on the boat anymore. But this made it a whole lot easier since the bullets still came from the actual rats themselves and the damage received was still the boat's. Which means that I can now easily dodge the bullets and punch the boat without the fear of getting shot straight in the face. The new plan I came up with now is to keep punching the boat until some flyboys show up, run back into the save point and kill them off there. But when I loaded my game the second time after doing my first round of damage, the rats were still bugging out, but now they weren't even shooting anymore.
Oh my god, they're not shooting, dude. That's... Hell yeah, dude. Come here, punch you in the face, dude.
And just like that, punching the boat without the fear of dodging multiple bullets, I was able to cheese yet another boss fight.
One more punch.
And this one is for the marbles.
What? A dog beastie? No way! Persistent bastard. Let's see if there's anything worth taking. If there's still a him to take from.
Dang. In the next area is another boss right off the bat, where I now have to fight a ghost. This boss was super easy on its own, even without guns, because I just had to use my flashlight to kill it. The only thing I needed to physically damage her was her barrier, but after that it was back to channeling my inner Alan Wake as I pack up my Energizer batteries and go to work. While progressing the game in day 4, however, I did experience some highs and some lows. I mean, it's normally caused by the flyboys once again and having to cheese every encounter with them so I wouldn't die, which always takes an insane amount of time for me just to get past one section. While the highs came from these rare events where I suddenly turn into Popeye and just start going to town on everyone around me. But nothing else compared to that day when I got reunited with another finger gun area. Oh, hell no. Unlike the first area where I had barrels to work with, in this section it was going to be mainly my boot in the dream. There were 2 health cabinets that restock on health after a certain amount of time, so I currently had that going for me. So the current plan was to keep running in circles and try to slowly kick away the enemies that were chasing me during the first wave. Based on my counts, it takes around 6 kicks to take one enemy down, so that's 18 kicks in total while running around in a circle. And sometimes when I jump or get onto a higher ground where they can't reach you, they start throwing these rocks that have splash damage, which also damages themselves if they're within the radius. So not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but after the second wave showed up, I now had to deal with a gunner, on top of the dudes that wanted to bash my brains in, of course. Thankfully, this gunner comes with a flame barrel that I can easily use to dispose him with. And then I was back to my train of kicks and giggles. The third wave was a completely different story though, as the game had spawned.
Oh my god, not the sniper, dude.
Now I had to slightly adjust my plans as I reached the second wave again, this time saving the flame barrel for the sniper instead. And sometimes this would also take out the flyboy that the game spawns alongside the sniper. And the fourth wave, however, is when things started heating up, as the game spawned in a bomber enemy along with another flyboy.
God damn it. What is that? Oh my god.
Thankfully, I was able to manipulate the grenades that this man threw as I used the bombs to take out the other enemies trying to kill me, and quickly finding out that going in front of one of those bomber enemies would cause them to not attack, which resulted in me stun locking one as I kicked to my heart's content. But this is when the game decided to go all in with its final wave, as I now have to face 2 gunners and 2 bombers at the same time.
Oh, oh,
But the final wave was actually a lot easier than the rest, as these doors that the enemies come out of ended up helping me out in the long run. So after going through this whole circus once again just to reach that point, I had no time to think as I leaped straight into action. I started picking off one side, prioritizing the gunman first before anyone else. Again, the other doors ended up helping me take cover from the other enemies, as the only damage I took here was the kicks he gave back to me. Once the gunner was dead, I now hopped towards the bomber guy as he got stuck in place as I kicked his stupid and somewhat cute face in. Playing it safe now, I decided to wait for one of the health cabinets to respawn and get some HP back so I don't die and do this whole thing all over again. I wanted another one ready for me just in case something wrong happens, which it did, as I ate multiple bombs straight to the face. And even worse when the ground unit got the angle on me, as they too started throwing rocks at my current location. With nowhere left to hide, I sprung into action and engaged with plan B, as I rushed to get the last health cabinet and jumped straight to the other 2 ranged enemies. As I started kicking for dear life, I realized that the rocks they were throwing from below were also hitting my targets, which made killing them a lot faster, albeit more recklessly. With the final threat out of the picture, I started getting the jitters as I had 15 HP left, and one hit from the last remaining 2 could spell disaster. But I managed to hold my ground as I survived the final encounter and defied the odds once again.
clutch. Alright, now I can maybe toy around. Ow, okay, never mind. I'm gonna wait for this, I'm scared. Clutch. Alright, there's one down.
Yeah! I didn't even get a chance to breathe as another boss was thrown to my general direction, as I now had to face another sniper, but this time with more HP. Like any other snipers in this game though, they always have a certain spot where they always teleport to, and I just had to find that spot and use that to my advantage. Which I quickly found that in this little corner, as long as I dodge and take cover long enough, that he will eventually teleport to the same ground level where my fist can properly meet his face. After wrapping up that part of the game and ending my very successful day of not shooting at all, back in the hub is where I overheard someone yelling just outside my office. And finding out that decking a Nazi rat in the nose is not only therapeutic, but also rewarding as it gave me another trophy.
Not here. Not in a million years.
Bam!
Get out of here, Phil shirt.
Day 5 was actually the day I got a lot done because it was actually my day off from work. I ended up popping 2 story-related trophies, along with doing the last but hardest finger gun section of my life. This area was basically an all-out brawl where I had to just constantly move while dodging all the gunners and a sniper for that sweet cherry on top. I have experienced the most deaths and on top of that, the most frustrations in this one section alone. Even with some cheeky spots that I discovered that caused the AI mapping to readjust from time to time, just the sheer amount of gunners and how little cover there was definitely put my limits to the test. The only reason I managed to beat this area was because of careful planning and when and who to throw the only 2 barrels that were available for me to use. Also taking advantage of the 2 bombers that eventually showed up in later waves. But with sheer determination and the patience of a saint, I found 3 strategic corners in total where I ended up doing my surprise kick ambush and running the hell away. Eventually I got lucky enough and finished the area even if I didn't really do anything to the sniper. I guess he didn't count and was only there to make my life a living hell. Oh my god, I did it! Let's go! Jesus flippin' Christ. Popping another story-related trophy as I dive into the most relaxing boss fight in this game, due to the lack of bloodshed. 2, fighting Beauty and the Beast if Beauty was the Beast herself, where she throws a bunch of candles that blow up like your modern grenades, in a very accurate and in very, very quick successions. Since straight up boxing wasn't going to work for this boss, I ended up trying to manipulate her teleportation movements, to make it so she would teleport close enough where her exploding candles landed. This didn't work all the time, but enough to chip away at her health faster than my fist ever would. And of course, it wouldn't be right if I hadn't cheesed a single boss fight this day, where this particular boss was actually too high up for me to punch. I mean, sometimes I would get there, but it was just too inconsistent, and with the amount of enemies constantly spawning in, it was also not a viable plan. So I did what I did best and started jumping in places that most players wouldn't normally jump to. First, I ended up getting back to where I came from, but this was just a temporary breathing room as I can't really do anything to the boss from here. I also started chucking dynamite at her, and while this did do damage, I was far from having enough to actually kill her with. That is until I tried jumping on the same platform that she was at. Now hear me out. I realized that there was actually a door on the left side along with that little microphone thing sticking out the wall. This should technically hold me in place, and if there's no invisible walls covering the boss, I should be able technically to jump up there. And sure enough, I can get up there.
This is alright, man. Bow, 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 bow. As long as she doesn't move, I think I'm good. She doesn't move? Oh yeah, it's over then. Bing.
What? Not guilty?
Directly after that boss fight is another one that the game has decided to dump onto me, but now with color. This dude had the same tactics as everyone else at this point, but instead of just normally teleporting from place to place, he also unleashed a barrage of grenades. That and the occasional backup. I didn't really find this fight all that hard, maybe just time consuming. Now he does have a second phase as he ditches his gun and his cheap tricks, where he thought he could actually beat me with what I've been doing the whole game. After properly beating him up, I would then pop another story-related trophy shortly after. And the final boss I encountered for this day was in a submarine. This boss fight had some steps to it, mainly because I had to get rid of these turrets first. Luckily, I didn't really know what to do once I started spazzing out, which gave me all the time in the world to just keep punching it until it blew up. There were a couple ones that were placed higher, but good thing there were a bunch of barrels around, just enough for me to destroy the hard-to-reach turrets. The only hard thing about this boss fight is the time limit before the whole area self-destructs. So unlike most scenarios where I could just take my sweet time, I now needed to punch faster than I ever did before. He did also get me by surprise when the boss decided to bum rush me with a broken needle. Good thing that only works on people once, as the second encounter, it was lights out, as I got another story related trophy after beating this particular boss. Going back into the main hub now, I was told that the next section is actually the point of no return. So I started to pop a bunch of miscellaneous trophies before doing the final mission, like finally turning in the final side quest that I could do, also buying the rest of the baseball cards that I needed from the vendor. I also started playing this baseball card game and won 30 times, which also got me tokens to unlock the COD Zombies classic ray gun from the vending machine, and getting to pin every single possible clue on the board just before progressing to the final act. Now that the last day is finally here, I was ready to get back into the saddle and get my teeth smacked into the back of my throat once more, as I instantly struggled on the first level, due to the fact that the devs put in a bomber boy along with a sniper boy and 2 big guys for that perfectly balanced torture. And not long after that, I now have to fight a returning boss with the elemental sniper rifle that he rolled in Borderlands probably. This boss was proving to be a pain in my butt, as he still does the same teleporting and shooting me from afar tactic. Fortunately, as I was about to start cheesing the system once more, I found myself accidentally getting wedged into this corner, not being able to move. And at that moment, I thought that that was the run and that I might need to restart until the boss itself got stuck. Without being able to teleport anywhere, I thought it would be a perfect opportunity for me to start wailing on him. That is, if I could jump. To my surprise, however, the elemental damage he's been giving to me also damages himself if he's close enough. That and just having him shoot the pipe he was standing on, and this would result in him literally drenching himself in his own elemental damage, which now makes Mr. Assassin the easiest boss in the game, and since I didn't really need to do anything.
I can probably like reload my save or something.
I'm not even gonna dignify you with a one-liner.
Guys, over here!
Wanda, boy, am I glad to see you.
Chop, chop, Jack, get in.
I wish I could chop Wanda, but I'm stuck. Oh, never mind. I'm free. Hell yeah.
After this boss fight, I eventually ran into the final weapon in the game, popping me another trophy, which also meant getting to fully upgrade every single upgradable weapon. And shortly after, I was then taught a new skill of vaulting, but better. But this also got me the trophy for learning all the skills, and the final collectibles for collecting all the comic strips and all the newspapers in the game. With only 2 trophies remaining, I have now come across an encounter that caused me countless amounts of willpower to not use my guns. And in this section where I have to fight off airplanes, well, not really, but they do bring out the worst combo in all of Mouse PI history. The Fly Boys, whom I've always hated, and the runner-up of my most hated enemy type, the Snipers. But after experiencing this horror, my tier list just listed a new hated enemy type, and that would be Gravity. With the Triforce of Depression dancing with me for what felt like 9 hours straight, there was no cheesing these fights. So my main goal is to speedrun to the point where the first Flyboy spawned from, try to kill all of them without draining most of my stamina meter, then proceed to prep up my charged uppercut, and hopefully stun and instantly kill the sniper guy before he teleports to another plane. Unfortunately, this is where the problem occurred. I would only manage to kill 2 Flyboys, and the fact that I know that the sniper would eventually get a couple of free hits on me if I focus on getting rid of the 3rd Flyboy. So I rush in on the sniper only for me to mess up my stun lock, as he would then teleport away. And at this point, the chances of me not finishing this level drops to like 90%, as going back to kill the sniper would cause my health bar to drop in the red, and this is because I have to do long jumps, so there was no way for me to dodge his shots as I'm already in the air. And after getting rid of the sniper, I would immediately get introduced to even more Flyboys in the next area, along with more snipers. This is why I needed to have a perfect run on the first one so I can potentially survive the next encounter. And with my patience at an all-time low, I was tilted more than ever before, and this caused me to remember that I was also a helicopter, and that I can also maneuver in the air, which I eventually discovered after I failed to kill off the sniper, that I can just fly to the next area. And once the game started mag dumping all of its crates of annoying flying mice and 2 snipers to top it off, I decided to make a run for it instead, and choosing mental health over anything else.
Where are they all coming from?
Oh my god. Oh my god, I could just skip all that. Hell yeah, dude.
But now it was finally time for the final boss fight in the game, where at first I was skeptical as hell since all I had to do was to dodge lasers. And probably one of the most challenging ones for this boss fight is getting rid of these microphone things. After that section was done, however, it was back to dancing with the lasers. And that was because this is just the first stage of this boss fight, as the right-hand man drops down along with the entire Nazi army. Locked into a brawl with a never-ending enemy spawns, I found myself in the hardest boss fight of the whole game, where not only did this guy not care for my fists, but having to constantly get chased around by 4 dudes with bats and just a perfect singular amount of machine gun on the side to completely render me helpless. And don't get me wrong, I tried to come at this as legitimately as I possibly could. And while my whole tactic of running in circles and occasionally getting a punch in is a possible plan to fall back to, I would rather not be here for 2 to 3 hours in this one boss fight and just doing that. So I ended up looking for a cheeky way to tackle this boss fight. And yeah. There actually wasn't one. Normally I would see and feel a crack in a stage where I can easily manipulate it, but not here. But yeah, unfortunately it was just running around for hours. That was the only possible means to beat this game. But once that boss was handled with, a third stage presented itself, as I still needed to dodge a horde of rats while now trying to jump punch the boss every now and then. And as I was just about to finish the game, the boss hunkered down in the middle part where he was just far enough for my fist to meet his face. And since I was still in the same stage as his second phase, I already knew there was no cheesing this boss fight. There were no more plants left, and if he manages to kill me, I have to do that dance with this right-hand rat all over again. So can you get the platinum trophy for Mouse PI without shooting? Unfortunately, that answer is no. And for those of you who's already beaten the game, yes, I did leave out a boss for this particular reason. An earlier boss from day 6. After wrapping up the shrew case, I was met with a boss whom I could not reach. Be it jumping as far as I could to chuck dynamite near it, nothing was coming even remotely close. Since he was on a plane, the game wanted me to use these anti-aircraft cannons and shoot him down. I actually spent hours on this section alone trying to find a cheese spot and maybe being able to climb all the way up for me to punch his lights out. Or maybe to be able to jump high enough and land on his plane. But the map was actually stopping me from doing so due to an invisible wall that wasn't in any other fights. And this alone caused me to just throw in the towel. Like, there was just no way for me to reach a plane with my fists. So I did end up beating this boss using the anti-aircraft cannons.
Yeah, this is gonna be awkward. That's for the shrews, ass face.
Even if I do brush that off, there is this one trophy in particular that just stops me from doing this challenge altogether that I found out after beating the game. There is this one trophy in this game, and that's for killing 20 enemies by shooting barrels. Throughout my whole game, I hoped that just punching the barrel and killing enemies around me would somehow count for it as opposed to shooting the barrels itself. But after trying to farm for this trophy and counting the number of enemies that I've already blown up with this method, I already knew that this was never going to work. And after finishing the game, I did for a fact know that I have killed more than 20 enemies by punching barrels and still nothing. So the game technically still counts that as a form of kicking, maybe? I'm not really sure where that falls. But unfortunately, after finally beating the boss with the ray gun and getting my final trophy, I realized that that one trophy that I needed to shoot the barrels for never popped. So with this final trophy, the only thing I needed for the platinum trophy, I just reloaded the safe spot where I know a lot of enemies spawn at and trained them near any explosive barrels I could find. And having to play the story a little bit more, I eventually popped the last trophy along with a platinum.
There we go. Trophy. Fire starter. Platominium.
All in all, I was happy that I did this challenge because for starters, it's a really easy game. And doing this actually added a bit more excitement to it, so I actually don't regret doing it. I mean, it did get boring just punching and all that, but in mere impossible fights and managing to break the game as much as I did, I gotta say, it was pretty fun. Still, it sucked that I was so close. I was this close to getting the plat without actually shooting. But, you know, I guess when it comes to boomer shooters, you gotta shoot. But if you made it this far, I just want to say thank you for watching the whole video and supporting the channel. It means a lot to me. But if you guys want more content from yours truly, you know what I'm saying? You know, subscribe and like and all that. I also have a Twitch channel. I'm not good at streaming though. Like, I rarely talk. Like, there's some cool people in there. So if you guys want to hang out with us or with me, mostly me, or sometimes with another person lurking, go follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv//DoccoBell. Like, yeah, like I stream literally everything that I play, to be honest. I'm out of here. Yeah? Keep it real, but not too real, because that's just boring. And I hope everyone has a phenomenal day. Trophy!